Karina. First question I always kind of like to ask right up front, how do we know each other?
We have had the pleasure to meet through a certification training for the P.A.P.I. Was it last week?
Yeah, it was last week. It's pretty recent. So we don't know each other well, but I think I left a lasting negative impression. And during the process, I said, you know what? I was kind of critical and skeptical when I went into the course, but I saw a lot of things that I liked. My first thought was, this doesn't just interest me. This probably interests a bunch of other business people I know who've always been wondering what's out there. I will say up front, one of the things that I've noticed, I use Amazon quite often to buy my books. I have several times sat down and tried to find the different personality models that are out there, and there's almost no books in Amazon. I don't know if that's your experience, but that's my experience. And I always thought it was kind of weird and strange. And I just wanted to jump at the chance to have somebody in our podcast who actually knows what the heck she's talking about. More than that, you're not just a salesperson in the subject matter. You're actually a psychologist. You're a trained psychologist, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
yeah. Well, thank heaven for us. So let's jump right in. Tell us a little bit about your background. You've got a very interesting background. So go ahead and tell us where you come from and how you got into this field of work.
Yep. I'm from the deep South, so not Texas, the deep South, South Africa. So all the way to the bottom.
Actually, isn't it Namibia though?
My family is from Namibia, so Namibia is right next to South Africa. Yeah. If you look at the map, Africa, South Africa, Namibia is right next to it. The Namib Desert is in it as well. My family are from Namibia, German-speaking Namibians. After the second, it used to be this is I want to retake.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, let me start again. I am originally from South Africa, with my family coming from Namibia. So I am first generation South African, also German speaking. My parents are from Namibia, and Namibia used to be a German colony, one of the few, Deutsch Südwestafrika, and continued speaking German. So I'm a German speaking Namibian South African who now lives in the Netherlands.
The best combination,
2.5 years ago. Yeah, so I'm a global citizen. People have told me, I think, speak English, German, Afrikaans, learning a little bit of Dutch as well now, so picking that up quite quickly, and have had the pleasure actually to grow up in a really rich cultural environment, and being then also trained as a psychologist and a psychometrist has given me lots of colorful insights into people in general and the experience around that. Happy to share.
Standard question we have to ask all psychologists.
Yes.
Why did you study psychology?
I have a story for that, actually. Good. I was always a social researcher. So when I look back, when I was a kid as well, I used to run around and ask everyone the same question just to see if there are differences. Fascinated me, and I don't know why, but it is the way I am. And there was a girl I was friends with in high school, and she used to cut herself. So in her palm, she used to cut herself, and I didn't understand it. And it made me sad, but it intrigued me on what would push someone to do that to themselves. That is then when I started in social work, went into clinical psychology, and then slowly moved over into organizational industrial psychology. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but I'm fascinated by people and how different they are and what drives them. And then the more you work with people, the more you see the similarities as well, and what pushes and pulls us. And that's where my passion is.
So right from the get-go, you were certain that's what the direction that your psychological studies were going to go.
I thought clinical psychology, and then I changed my mind into organizational.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. You studied in South Africa?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead.
South Africa is quite heavily regulated when it comes to psychology. So now moving here, I see different countries are different. The regulation around South Africa is strongly influenced by what happened with psychometric testing now for the subject matter in specific, specifically talking about psychometric testing. stems from the apartheid and how it's been badly used to disadvantage main groups. So we have very strong laws to govern psychometric testing. It needs to be valid, reliable, non-biased, and fair. And whatever we say as psychologists has to be defensible in court. So when I look at personality assessments, I look at it through that lens too. And I know exactly what happens when it's badly used. And I'm really glad about this opportunity to talk about that.
I think, isn't that field called originally eugenics, or am I picking up the wrong word there from my vocabulary?
I'm not sure.
I know that also Central Europe has had a historically bad run with that form of psychology or pseudoscience. It wasn't really psychology. But I think that's great that you mentioned that. So the very fact that South Africa has also some dark history there gave you an even more solid foundation for watching out that whatever you do is legitimate.